Hello, everybody. Brian Tulsa here, and welcome to Bry by Night, Part 2 The Revenge. This time, it's personal. I've been thinking about what else I can do on this channel, and I'm sorry that some of these daily vlogs have been pretty lame, like this one, but I really am trying to do this every single day. I don't want to miss a day. I've been thinking about what else I might do. Recently, I started a chapter by chapter review of the book Turmoil in the Toy Box, and I'll get to the next part of that pretty soon. There's something else that I've thought of looking at, of maybe doing reaction videos for. I don't know if you're aware of the TV series Fire by Night. You're probably not aware of it. Fire by Night is sort of the Christian equivalent of Saturday Night Live. Sort of. If you grew up in an evangelical environment, if you grew up as I did, you're probably aware of Gospel Bill. Gospel Bill was a Christian-themed cowboy show. And the star of that show and the producer of that show, Willie George, eventually went on to start his own megachurch called Church on the Move in the Tulsa area. I think they have more than one location now. So he's someone who is very familiar in our local church scene. But before he started his church, he was primarily making material for youth groups. He was making entertainment and media for children. And Fire by Night was the show that was supposed to appeal to teens. And it had humor, it had sketch comedy, it had interviews with contemporary Christian musicians that were popular at the time. It was hosted by a Canadian gentleman by the name of Blaine Bartell. And it was produced in Tulsa, Oklahoma, technically I'm not in Tulsa. I'm in Broken Arrow, which is a suburb of Tulsa, but I still consider myself a Tulsan. Anyway, it was produced here in Tulsa, and a lot of the footage was shot here on location in Tulsa. And they made this show. It was sketch comedy for Christians. And the last half of each episode was a sitcom, like a half-hour sitcom. They changed it up a couple of times, but for most of the run, the sitcom was called Family First, and it dealt with a Christian family. It was a little bit amusing because in the most popular era of this sitcom, the mom and the dad were played by a married couple by the name of John and Vicky Jo Whitty. They were from here, so they had Okie accents. But the kids were played by Blaine and Kathy Bartell. They were both Canadian. And they were married. As a married couple, but they were playing brother and sister. And they were playing teenagers, all right? They had the role of teenagers in the show, but they were obviously much older than that. I mean, Blaine Bartell had a receding hairline, okay? So you could tell he wasn't a teenager. Also, I always thought it was funny because the parents in Family First had an Okie accent, but both of the kids had like really hardcore Canadian accents. So how the hell did that happen? But most of those episodes are on YouTube. I have gone back and watched a lot of them. And It's hilarious in how unfunny it is. I mean, it really tries to make funny jokes, and most of the time it fails miserably. And its failure in being funny a lot of times is funny. But I have to admit, there are some times when the jokes actually land and I laugh at the actual joke. Um, so I still get a lot of entertainment out of watching them. Um, so what I was thinking was doing uh, reaction videos to Fire by Night episodes. Uh, the show for me has a lot of nostalgia. I watched it as a teenager. It was on one of our local Christian television stations every week, so we'd always watch it. Since it was local, it was kind of cool to see, like, um, you know, places around town used as shooting locations for this show. That was kind of cool. Um, and the best I can say for the show is it's mostly harmless. Most of the time, it's just trying to reinforce some Christian value or belief. And most of the time, it's not bad. I mean, it encourages people to do the right thing and to tell the truth and that kind of thing. That's not bad. There's nothing wrong with that. But there are other times when it's not so harmless. For instance, there are a couple two-part episodes. I think 4 episodes in total about Satanism. And it feeds directly into the so-called satanic panic of the 1980s and 90s. I mean, it gets really worked up about Satanism. And a lot of the information and the hysteria that they convey was not really true. There was, you had to live through the time, I guess. But there was a time, especially in like kind of the late 80s, when there was an irrational fear of Satanism everywhere. Like, people believed that Satanists were running daycare centers for the purpose of harvesting children for human sacrifices. And it was ridiculous. I mean, none of this stuff is substantiated. It's absurd. But that's the kind of thing people were worried about at the time. And these episodes of Fire by Night fed directly into that. I mean, they leaned hardcore into that irrational hysteria. The other time it was not harmless, was in the episode that covered abortion, homosexuality, and AIDS. That's right, the trifecta, all 3 in one episode. And it is atrocious. It's awful. It's not harmless at all. I mean, all of the worst things that you hear from Christians about gays, about abortion, about AIDS, it's all in that episode. It's rife with homophobia. It's filled with the common tropes about abortion. It's a straight up attempt to control the sexuality of the viewers, of the kids, of the teenagers that were watching it. And that was not harmless. That reinforced some very ugly beliefs that persist to this day. So I have mixed feelings about the show, because sometimes I legitimately enjoy watching the show. Sometimes it's just so amusing. The sketch comedy is ridiculous. If you're not familiar with like an evangelical Christian environment, you may not understand some of the humor because it really is focused specifically on that demographic. So if you're not in that demographic, you may not get it. But I grew up with that, so I get it. And some of it's actually funny. Some of it's not funny, and I laugh at their lame attempts to be funny. So I've gotten a lot of amusement out of the show, but at the same time, I have to recognize that that show perpetuated a lot of ugliness. I want you to see the show. So that's something I'm planning for the future. I want to do a reaction to maybe a few of the episodes, but that's something that will have to wait. It's late. I'm going to go to bed. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.